Okay, so understanding your environment. So again, it was a fun way because we kind of have like little bets between us, which I said, yeah, this is not for betting, but but it was like little chores and everything, and it got everybody kind of excited. But now I wanted to introduce, let's talk about data around you. What could we talk about? So the first year I did this class, we did climate change, and this last year we did Montbello crime data. So let me talk about the climate change. So doing the climate change is really cool because, I could basically talk about how do we know that the planet is getting warmer, right? And so I could talk about ice cores and that we can basically drill down and we can get information on temperature and carbon dioxide going back almost 1 million years. And from these measurements, basically this is why we believe that climate change is happening, is that, it doesn't take a mathematician to see that these two curves are the same or are connected somehow. And that given the fact that we have all this CO2 now, that this is pretty much going off the charts, we would expect this curve now to go higher. So that was their assignment. I said, well, I can tell you all about this, but I want you to go figure it out. So basically what I had them do is go into, the historical weather data and basically pick areas in this country that are expected to suffer from a lot of climate change. And basically what you can do is you can go in there, there's weather stations that most of them went back to about 1940. So basically I would have them go to different areas and download this information. And then just graph it. Let's see what the summers do, for a particular time point. So again, and I let them choose whatever they wanted. We choose, I think one of them was Yuma, Arizona. We picked Grand Junction. I did one in Minnesota. We did one in Miami. And again, this is the weather. This is the website that we went to get it, and anybody can access this. This isn't special. You just go and you basically just rip the data from it. So this was their graphs, and you're going to get some weird transitions because they made these slides. I just kind of took their slides, so they were very much into experimenting with transitions between slides, so there's going to be some kind of weird stuff. But you could see, basically what I would have them do is basically put all these points on a graph lines to see, what are these temperatures doing this summer, and then summarize that data. There's the transition. And basically draw lines or draw a regression line and see whether, what is that slope? Is it positive or negative? Every place we looked, it was a positive slope, going as far back as we could. So we did about every 10 years. Yeah, they love these transitions. Fairbanks, Alaska. So again, this is in the summer. This is the average high and the average low. And you could see some areas, especially in Alaska, you could see the effect of climate change in both the extreme and the lower values. Miami, Florida, not much in the minimum values, but you can definitely see a positive slope over time in the summer. Yeah, that was a long transition. I'm going to have to take that one out. And then I had my cousin works for NOAA. It's the North American Oceanic. He's a climate scientist.
Oceanic and Atmospheric Association.
Yes. So he actually got us some data. Now he works for. He was working for the petrol industry now, which is really strange. But he gave us a bunch of data that they had, and so we actually graphed NASA data, and you can see that this is the rise in sea levels over time. And you can make predictions, right? Now that I have a line that approximates the data, we can use this to predict the future. Crime data, how am I doing on time? Okay, cool. So we use crime data. Again, Colorado is one of a select few states that is actually participating in this. This was kind of brought up by the FBI, is that you're kind of posting police reports in real time. And anybody can get this data. And it's kind of this openness thing. Denver crime map. So not only that, but then the Denver Police Department takes all that data, and they have a place where you can see where the actual crimes are. For any given period, you can limit this to just murders or arson or anything you want. And this was cool because the kids could actually go and see their house and see where the crime happened. That we would look and like, some of the kids, I'm like, you live in a bad neighborhood, man. You gotta move. But you could just see like groups of crimes, that it wasn't all just evenly distributed. And that when you look at certain crimes like, auto theft, they tended to happen around, big parking lots, right? Or aggravated assaults tended to happen near, apartment buildings. So I wanted to not just have them just mine the data, but I wanted to give them a question. And again, this is their environment. Obviously legalizing marijuana in this state was a big deal. So I wanted to ask him, did the legalization of marijuana have any effect on the crime rate in Colorado? But for this class, it was more specifically in Montbello. So they did. We downloaded all this data. We graphed it. And again, these are their graphs that they made. This is using Excel, a program that everybody has. And what we found was traffic accidents are increasing, not terribly much. Again, marijuana was legalized in January 1st, 2014. So I asked him, I said, hey, traffic accidents are increasing. If maybe more people are smoking marijuana, maybe that would go up. What we found, though, I asked him, I said, do you think there's any difference here? And really, there's no big change in the trend at when we legalize marijuana. So, and then that gives me an opportunity to say, ask him, why do you think this is going up? Increased population, yeah.
Do you teach them, I was just going to ask you that, do you teach them things like increasing population as a
Totally.
factor? Because so many times statistics can be artificially manipulated.
Absolutely. Here was a nice thing, and it worked out great for the class, everybody being in Montbello. Montbello is one of those few areas in Colorado that doesn't experience that huge growth. So.
Big snowstorm in January of 2015.
2015. Which one?
The highest peak.
Yeah, that was probably it right there. Watch this. So one of my kids made this graph. So basically what he did was, the number of traffic accidents, he divided it up into years. When he did this, I didn't even know you could do this with Excel. I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. We call this the Rocky Mountains of fender benders. And what we noticed is obviously there's a lot of traffic accidents when, around January when it's cold. But here's what we found interesting. If you're in Montbello, you watch out during May and June because there's a lot of traffic accidents, right? And they could see all this. We looked at burglaries. See, did legalizing marijuana have any effect? And in Montbello, the crime rate is going down, or at least the burglaries are. And again, they colored this any way they wanted. So basically, he color-coded it to the actual year. He did it a little different. I had no idea you could do this with Excel, the way they did this. Again, you could see it decrease, but again, around January 1st, 2014, there's not really, I think this is just going down, and we talked about maybe it's the economy, who knows. Another way is to graphic, different trend lines you can use to more approximate the data. You don't have to always use a straight line. One of the kids put a picture of a hot rod underneath the graph. I don't think it really adds anything to the graph, but I was like, that's really cool. And I had no idea you could do this with Excel. It's amazing. You give them, high school kids today are very comfortable with computers. And my job was just to kind of give them a basic understanding of what to do, and they would just take off. Here's where things started getting interesting with the crime reports, is that you could see, so this is aggravated assaults. These are things like, assaults, murders, violent crime. What I thought was interesting, you could see it kind of peaks actually at December 31st, 2013. And then right here is when we legalized marijuana, and you could see it going down. And I thought that was interesting. This doesn't prove anything, but it's very, very interesting. We talked about why would that be? Maybe everybody's more mellow now. Who knows? And then we talked about how do you test this, right? And then we talked about, well, maybe we could test other communities, say in Washington, another place or test other areas of Denver, right? All I want to do is to introduce them to this and then, get them to think, like, how could you test this? Here's what I thought was interesting is, another thing that was affected by legalizing marijuana is the level of drug crimes went up. Not only that, and then we talked about, marijuana possession actually increased after the legalization. Why do you think that is?
Because a lot of people under 21.
Absolutely. Totally. Right?
That's our population.
Yeah. All your teachers are like, yeah, we know. But yeah, it gave us a chance to, talk about this and, maybe legalizing marijuana, reduced aggravated assaults, but, maybe it introduced a lot more drug crime. Who knows?
Cocaine and meth.
Yeah, cocaine and heroin is definitely making a comeback for sure.
Meth is way up.
Yeah. Now, definitely drug-related crimes are increasing. But again, we talked about, this is kind of a national trend too. So it's not just Colorado. So is it truly the legalization of marijuana that's doing this? So concepts we learned, more practice with Microsoft Excel. We introduced new data analysis software. This is the JUMP. By the way, you can get it for your school. This is this SaaS program. For $500, everybody in your school can have access for 5 years. $500, that's it. Obviously, it makes, it's for these companies, they want to introduce this to high school kids because they'll go on and they'll learn on it and want to keep using it.
This is a add-on to Excel.
What's that?
Is this program an add-on to Excel?
No, it's its own program.
Okay.
But it works very, very similar to Excel. And that's what was really nice is once I got them familiar with Excel, this was not that big of a deal to get them to use this. Yeah.
So why did you go from Excel, which is industry standard, to SAS, which a lot of places I've never heard of?
Because,
Excel, if I walk into it and I said Excel, most people will know what I'm talking about.
sure.
SAS, I'm like, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, it's cheap. It's pretty easy to use. And you can do a heck of a lot more stuff with it than you can Excel. And here's a big concept with all this stuff is that it's very easy. Once you make a mistake in Excel, it'll get lost. And that's why scientists hate Excel. When you use JUMP, everything you do, you retain a record for that, right? So that you can always go back and figure out where you might have went wrong. So it was very important for me to introduce this kind of software. And again, a lot of it is, finding data on the web, and it's very easy to do. This is more practice with this, using data to answer questions, graphing. We actually wrote an abstract, not on the crime one. We did on the crime one, but we did the climate change, and we got accepted for a JUMP meeting, which I thought was really cool. We don't have any money to go to San Diego, but, And it gave them an opportunity to, you're taking somebody else's data, you have to format it to fit your purposes. Okay, wisdom of crowds. How am I doing on time?